Hey, you guys, this might be an unfamiliar face to some of you, and some of you see me on the weekly. I have Sweet Talk Jake into letting me interview him for the Grow Your Roots series. You may remember the other videos with Jay Harp and myself, but I thought it would be really neat for you guys to see Jake and his story. And I believe it's an amazing story of a man who fought through a lot of pain and some hurt, and he still decides to show mercy and show love to the world, and it's hard in these days to do those things. And so the video is a little bit long, but I ask you to sit through it and just enjoy the story of your youth pastor, and if he's not your youth pastor, the story of a guy who may be a lot similar to you than you may know. And so I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye. Hey guys, how's it going? Long time no see. I know maybe you weren't expecting to see this beautiful face again. So I am under quarantine right now, and I am not able to lead my service on Wednesday. So I asked Jake to come in and tell us a little bit. If you guys remember your Grow Your Roots series that Jake did, it was a while back now. But I thought it would be very interesting not only to hear his story, but for his students to hear his story. And I think there's a lot we can learn about the things he could tell us. And so with that being said, Jake, you want to describe your upbringing? I mean, how did it go in the Baby Buffalo household?
So yeah, I was the youngest of four, and so and my upbringing is kind of different. I was raised in a Christian family, but it's a little bit different when I was younger. When I was born, my family was Catholic, and that's because my dad is Hispanic, and my mom was raised in not a religious household. So when she married my dad, she just became Catholic, and that was kind of it. Like I was Catholic. I was sprinkled as a baby. If anyone knows what that is, it's babies get baptized in Catholic Church and sprinkled. But then when I was about 3 or 4, we started coming to the church that I grew up in. It's actually the same church I work at. And growing up, it was cool. Like I said, I was the youngest of four, and I wasn't necessarily the baby. Like it's mostly portrayed. I wasn't the spoiled one. I was spoiled, but that was really when I got older. But I wasn't like everything I ever wanted I got. It wasn't that way. I was kind of bossed around by my older siblings just because I thought it was funny. Just because what siblings do. It's funny when a little kid is young and can be bossed around.
Hey, the blue flame is cold, right? You touch it.
Right? Yeah, that means it's not hot because the red's hot. No, never anything like that. I was actually the smarter one. I had a sister a year older than me. She was the gullible one. So unfortunately for her. But yeah, I had a good life growing up. It was interesting because I was always kind of the fat kid or the kid that was bigger, and everyone didn't think I was like super athletic, which I'm not, but I'm not unathletic either. I can do things, but
I can do
so I was
that.
always like picked last, and got picked on for my weight and stuff like that. And I developed an anger issue growing up that got not fixed, but like I was able to control easier. Might talk about that here in a little bit, but but yeah, and yeah, I had a good family life. Just the youngest kid out of four, and that's not necessarily the baby, but yeah, I had a good life. I had a good family.
So, kind of what comes to your mind when you think about Christians or the church? And so you grew up going to one church, so that's a lot of history there, and you're still working at that church, so that's a lot of history. And so, how does that work? Growing up, being the fat kid, being kind of on the outside, and going to a church your whole life. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot to dig through.
Yeah. So when I think of Christians, like kind of taking my youth pastor hat off and just being a person, when I think of Christians, it's a double-edged sword. It's really like there's two sides that people see. both inside and outside. And really, I'll start with the good. Really, like, there are so many things Christians do to help others, and it's being selfless and being just caring and loving, and being there, and like, if there ever a hurricane or a disaster event in the country or internationally, Christians are some of the first people to step up and say, hey, we need to help. So like, the hurricane that just hit, one of the hurricanes that just hit New Orleans, because they've had like 5. Like, there have been Christian groups there this entire time, like the day after it hit. There have been Christian groups there the entire time, helping people, kind of restart their lives and like getting whatever they need, feeding them, giving them clothes, all of that. And I got to experience that as a teenager. Like, I went to Peru on 2 mission trips in high school, and the church like fully funded that, almost to where my parents didn't have to pay a ton. And it's just stuff like that. Like, Christians are just so selfless and loving, but at the same time, like, Christians can also be very hateful. And that's the church I grew up in and work at. It's, there's people like that in every church, unfortunately. And, like I said, growing up there, I experienced people being very loving, and I feel like that's just because I was a kid and I didn't know any better. And then as I grew up and became a high schooler and got into college and have been working here, I still love all the people here, but sometimes people are difficult, and they just seem two-faced. And it's not like people try to be two-faced. It's just that society thinks the church and Christians are very hypocritical. Like, we all preach peace and love everybody, but we're hateful towards everyone that's not like us. It seems like it's kind of the big picture of the church today. And
and I would reach to say that we are hypocritical. I mean, even if you look in, I want to say it's Galatians. Paul's talking about, I want to serve the Spirit, but man, the desires of the flesh.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we are hypocritical. I think that's a part of it, and that's what makes church so hard.
Right.
I think.
Right. Because we're people, and everyone that isn't a Christian seems, and even Christians, forget we're people. We mess up. And so,
how dare you want to get rid of my pews? I've sat in that pew for 50 years.
Yeah,
and
that's my spot. It's formed to my butt.
Brick by brick, board by board, tear down this establishment.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah.
Church is hard. But what kept you in church? And so you grew up here in this church. You went to Oklahoma Baptist University, and I'm sure you were involved in churches or some Christian ministries there. And so what kept you going around?
So it was a few things, but I'll say my freshman year, I went to like the biggest college church, or the biggest church with the college program at OBU. And then I got hooked in, like, helped lead worship and all that jazz. But as I got to like sophomore year, I stopped going there because I feel like no one really cared about me, and they were just kind of using me because I can play bass. And I stopped going for a solid year. I would wake up, wait for noon, go eat lunch, and like it was like Popeyes half the time, just because I love Popeyes. Before they had the chicken sandwich.
I'm gonna go on record. Popeye's chicken sandwich is better than Chick-fil-A.
It is 100%. Roast me for that later. But yeah, then I'd go home, go back to my dorm room, watch football, and hang out with friends, and do whatever. And that was it for like a year. And then I started helping out. There was an opportunity to help a youth minister in the area. He needed a guy sponsor. And so I started helping him, and I really started going back to church and realized that, church is worth it for the for the community and for the fellowship. Even today, like, Scott's quarantined right now, but about a month ago, I was quarantined for 2 weeks and it sucked. I hated it. Like, I'm an introvert, and so I liked it partially, but after like day 7, I was like, okay, I need people.
Yeah, there's only so many world like series you can win on the show before like you're just done, man.
Yeah, there's only so many TV shows I can begin to watch or finish or whatever, and so many video games I can play and talk to people on a headset or on a phone before I'm like, I need human interaction. And that's really, I'm not going to say that's what the church is like for me, but that's one of the things that the church is supposed to be, is that faithfulness and like accountability towards each other and just fellowship and love for one another. And it's not like I didn't experience that while quarantined, or that year I didn't go to church in college. It was just that I seemed to forget that, how important that is, not only for me, but for people in general and for Christians. And so really that's why I continue to go to church, one, to be faithful, but two, to also be faithful in community with others and to grow and to learn with others.
So we go through your childhood. You've got siblings, and growing up is hard. I mean, getting made fun of. Just there's a lot of pain and stuff coming out, and then going to the same church. That's a lot of history. I know from experience, there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of good things that happen, but there's also a lot of bad things. And then we go to college, and things are just still kind of frustrating. But all of that mixed together, describe your decision to follow Jesus. And so there must be something here gravitating you towards it, because and there are some good things we talked about, but there are some bad things. And so why put up with the bad?
Right.
Like why tell us about the story of coming to Jesus, and then why stay? Why put up with the bad?
So, like I said, I grew up in a Christian family, and it looks a little different, obviously, just because my father is a Catholic growing up, and all the way into his 30s was Catholic. And so, but that's like helped form.
Does he sit on the front row in the church when kids are baptized? He's got
No, my dad is not a front row. Funny enough, we sat towards the front. Like, the room I'm in right now is right out next to our sanctuary, and I can like open the door and see the spot where I used to sit as a kid if I really wanted to. And it's near the front, just funnily enough, like haha enough. But no, like he's not that, but he just some different beliefs helped form me differently, and and how I think towards people I think is different than most other people that have the same kind of story as I do of growing up in the church. Not trying to bash anything, but it's just my experiences are a little bit different. And so but like a lot of people our age that are Christians, saved at church camp first year. And it was the last night, where everything is emotional, and I don't remember who the speaker was. I don't remember who the band. I don't remember anything. I just remember feeling like I'm such a terrible person. I need Jesus.
So does that hurt your feelings that you can't remember the band? I mean, you were in the Crossroomers band for like 3 years, and you're just like, they'll never remember me. Like,
no, man. Like,
that is gone.
Nah, it didn't do anything. Like, I like you said, I was in the band for 2 years at Crosstimers, and I know like no kid is ever going to remember me. They might remember a crazy dude at a camp they went to, like jumping up and down during God's Not Dead. That's about it. That's fine. Whatever. Probably no one will remember that.
Kid in like Walmart in like 15 years is going to be like, Jake? And you're
Jake?
Like,
you're my camp counselor. No, man. Like, and that's fine. But it was like, not like the turn or burn thing. Like, either become a Christian now or burn in hell forever. It wasn't that. It was like I just realized, like, I'm such a bad person. I need Jesus. And after that was kind of like the next 5 or so years were like the circle or the roller coaster, however you want to say it, of ups and downs, highs and lows in my life of following Jesus and hardships. And that kind of all came to a spearhead, or like a point after my freshman year of high school. I was at Super Summer, and in Oklahoma, it's a little different than it is here in Texas, and it's the same, but it's just run a little differently. Um, and in the session we go to, they are heavy on Wednesday night, and so like Wednesday night is the same thing. I don't remember who the speaker was. I don't remember who the band was at all. I don't remember the message, but I remember singing the song. The song we went out to was "You're Beautiful" by Phil Wickham. And that song, like today, still holds such a powerful meaning to me, because like my whole family group walked out. We were all singing that song to our meeting spot. And freshman year, I dealt with a lot of depression. I dealt with it growing up, but really freshman year is when it hit the hardest.
And we're talking about freshman year of high school, right?
Freshman year of high school, yeah.
Okay.
And depression is something I still deal with today, but it's different now. But at that time, that year I had a girlfriend, got broken up with. It ended terribly, and it was just bad. Like I had some thoughts of suicide. I had thoughts, does anyone really love me, and all of it. But I didn't talk to anyone about it because, yay for toxic masculinity. Which I just want to say, if you're a guy or a girl, don't let society tell you how to feel. The way you feel is the way you feel. Please talk to someone about it.
Yeah.
Because it helps. It does. You may think it doesn't, but it does. Anyway, but yeah, that night I told my family group everything that had gone on that past year and everything I was going through with my feelings and depression. And they prayed for me. And that night, I don't like to say I rededicated because I don't like the word. I like to think fully committed or fully devoted my life to Christ. Like at that moment, it was when I realized what being a Christian was. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard. And at the same time, I realized I wanted to be a youth minister, but I, ran away from that for a month before another counselor I talked to was like, stop being an idiot, follow Jesus, read Jonah, see what happened to him. And I'm like, you're right.
You're like looking over your shoulder, like looking for the whale.
Yeah, like something's gonna happen to me if I don't just confirm yes, Jesus, I will become a youth minister. I will follow your calling for my life. Which, fun fact, my youth pastor at the time, he's now my pastor. I told him that because all week I was struggling with it, and I told him, hey man, I just want to let you know I feel called to be a youth minister, and I'm gonna go to college, become a youth minister. And he looks at me and goes, yeah, I know. And I was like, what do you mean you know? I haven't told anybody this except for the counselor. And I don't know if he told you, but I asked him not to, and he said he didn't. And I was like, did he betray my trust? He's like, no. I was like, Jake, I've known since I met you. I just been waiting for you to figure that out. I was like, well, gee, thanks for telling me.
Jake's about to go Darth Vader style, start killing the Jedi temple, bro. He's like, I've been betrayed.
No, but it was dang, this is real. And to go to
I'm gonna make a side note is that we've been talking in my group. We talked about spiritual gifts not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to note that a lot of times when you act out in your spiritual gift like that, mm-hmm. It will be confirmed. I won't say every time it'll be confirmed, mm-hmm. but I have found that a lot of times when you're moving towards your spiritual gifts and you're very unsure and you're like, hey, I'm going to do this, people respond with, I know, or okay, not surprised. Because right. when I told she was my girlfriend, but now my wife, I was like, hey, I want to go into youth ministry. She was like, yeah, I've known that since the day I met you. And I was just like, thanks for telling me.
Same thing. It's that would have helped me a long time ago.
But I think a lot of people have those kind of stories when they're doing things for the Lord, and you ask them hey, how did this start? They say mm-hmm. well, this, and then I wasn't sure, and I told somebody, and they were like, I know. Anyways, on with your side. I'm sorry. I wanted to point that out.
No, you're good. To go with the second part of your question, which is why why is all of it worth it, right? It just like, ever since that moment, it was kind of like a launching point for my life in a way that I couldn't have ever imagined. Like that helped me understand, I mentioned I had an anger issue and it was bad. Like in middle school, I told my students the story of I blew up at a girl one night at youth because she was just picking pushing some buttons and like picking fun at me, and it was nothing big at all. But I made it bigger than it needed to be, and like yelled at her in front of everybody, and like her mom came and yelled at me, and I yelled back at her mom, and like it was a whole thing. And funny enough, like my youth minister says he doesn't necessarily remember that, but for me that was like a big moment, and like where my anger was at its highest. And that next year, like fully devoting and fully committing my life to Christ, I've begun to use that anger. Like I still get angry now. Like when Scott and I met at CT, him and I got in almost a fight. Like
It wasn't the first day. It wasn't the first day. It was we met. There was some time, and then we fought. It wasn't like we saw each other.
It was like the middle of the summer where like everyone's just annoyed with each other, and the smallest things set us off. And it was neither of us can remember really what it was, but yeah, people like get to push us away from each other. And good thing I have more control of my anger, because I would have definitely punched you in the face if I didn't.
I would guarantee that I deserved it, 100%. I don't know what the fight was about, but I can 100% guarantee I deserved it.
I probably would have deserved it too, so that's on both of us. But yeah, so I've been able to like use my anger and like my depression and like the not fitting in, and all of that. Like growing up, I didn't necessarily fit in. I was the edgy kid, listening to punk rock and Relient K and all of the edgy music.
Did you play with Pokemon cards? Like, did you have like your like secret black market like Pokemon card ring in the church?
No, I didn't. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh fan as a kid, but I didn't.
That's even worse.
Yeah, right. Even edgier. But no. I was able to use like all of that, all the experience I'd had for the short 15 years of my life at that point. Flashback. But the short 14 or 15 years of my life at that point, and just kind of focus all of those emotions and experiences towards relating to people. And it's worth it, just because I am where I am today, because of like those few singular moments I had in like the beginning of my high school in freshman year and that summer afterwards, and getting to go to Peru twice in high school, and it was the 2 years after that, and becoming a camp counselor in high school and working at a camp in college, and all of it's been worth it just to like help others, whether they're a third grader or a 85-year-old woman, like understand they need Jesus in some form or fashion. And if I can help them just make a small connection, that's all been worth it.
So you kind of answered that final question I have is, how have all those experiences gathered together help you today? And so using all that pain, all the good times, all the bad times, and being able to share Jesus, is that kind of what you would say?
Yeah, and it's really, it comes from a place of, because I've had those emotions and experiences. I try to think like, the example is always, look at Jesus, act like Jesus, and the common phrase is like Christian means little Christ, and that's cliche nowadays, but it's true. We're supposed to be as Christ was, and one of my favorite kind of explanations of a churchy sounding word is the word holy. And a good way to think about it is holy means set apart. And so, yeah, as a Christian, it feels awkward sometimes. We feel like we don't fit in, and that's the point. We're supposed to be set apart, and not like, oh, I'm the awkward, cringy kid, but in like the
See, but
what I
that's real. That's
yeah.
real because as a kid in high school, it is so hard to be a Christian
Hmm.
because that is counterculture. I mean, that's sinking your reputation. If you stand up there and you say, I'm a Christian, and you actually live like the Bible tells us to live, I mean, we're done.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not, you've been in, like, it hasn't been so long since we've been in high school that we can't
Right,
remember that.
right.
And I
And,
think that is a very hard thing to face.
mhm. Yeah, and in high school, I like after my freshman year, I totally shifted who I was. Like I was in marching band, and so I was around a lot of people all the time, for a good amount of time, and like going to football games and all that jazz. And I had several people tell me that I was, I just seemed to have changed from that summer. And it's not like I've lost my reputation because I didn't really have one. I wasn't a cool kid. I wasn't a loser. I was a band kid, but I wasn't a cool band kid. I just was kind of in the middle of all of it. Um, Friends with, not a lot of people, but everyone seemed to be able to talk to me and be nice, except for, dudes that still picked on me because I was overweight and fat, which I didn't care anymore. Um,
So how did you balance that in high school? That's what gets me. How did you balance being social and
mhm.
interacting with others while still keeping true to your beliefs?
Yeah.
Because I mean,
So,
it's high school. Like high school has a lot of temptations. Like there's a lot of things to
yeah.
do, drugs, sex. I mean, just lying. I mean, doing
Mhm.
stuff that you shouldn't be doing. And so, how do you still socialize and be with friends, but still keep it like Christ would want you to keep it?
Yeah. Um, so I began to kind of look at things in more of a long-term thing instead of like the right now. Like, yeah, I had friends that would invite me over to their house, but I knew like I may have been good friends with them, but I knew like what was going to happen at their house, and whether it be alcohol or drugs or something like that. And it depended on what it was and like what we were doing and stuff like that. But like I would just say, nah, I'm good. And I had friends that respected that. Like, they didn't try to pressure me into hanging out with them. Like, oh man, come on, my parents aren't going to be home tonight. We'll get in my dad's liquor cabinet, stuff like that. I know where he hides it. He actually lets me drink it. And I'm like, man, that's cool, but like, that's not important to me. Like, I don't care if I am drinking alcohol and getting drunk with some buddies on a random Thursday night. I'm like, we have school tomorrow, and I don't care. Like, I wasn't a nerd. Like, I
Man,
had to
that
get my
math test was hard.
yeah,
Why is it so bright in here?
right. Like, I wasn't a nerd, and like, and there's nothing wrong with being smart. Like, freaking, you're smart, and people are jealous of that. That's why they make fun of you because they're insecure about their own smartness. But sorry, that may be too real. Um,
I think
but
it's important. I think it's important to speak the truth in a loving way. I mean, maybe we could have said it more loving, but I mean that's
yeah,
true because I was on the other side of that. I mean, I was a jock. I was really fit in high school, um, and I remember I didn't make. I want to say I wasn't a bully, but there's definitely some kids that I bullied, um, and more of because they annoyed me. Not like I was just like, hey nerd, but it
yeah,
was just these kids that wouldn't like shut up in class.
yeah,
But still, like that's still bullying, like whatever you want to call it. Even if I want to justify it by saying they were talking or whatever, like it's still bullying.
mm,
And it was most of the time it was because I was jealous of what they had. Like I just told my students the story of a kid um, that I was jealous of because he like just had a nice life,
mm,
and so I hated him because I wanted to be him.
mm,
And I think that's something we don't like to face. We don't like to face that is that the reality of why we do things is because we want it or we're mad about it.
yeah. And I get that. Like, I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't the nerd, but I wasn't like the cool guy either. So like there were still people below me in like in the high school caste system or whatever. Um, and I was better about that. Um, but I'm a human and I was a teenager. Like I made mistakes. But I tried to think about, things from other people's shoes, no matter who it was, whether it was someone that was making fun of me or someone that was lower than I was on the high school system or whatever. I tried to be just more understanding and not accepting, but kind of like
Empathetic.
do what?
Empathetic.
Yeah, empathetic. Thank you. Words are hard today. Empathetic towards people's situation, no matter who it was. And like I said, it wasn't important. It wasn't important to me anymore. Like my social status, like I didn't care. I knew who I was. Not fully because I was still insecure, but it's like I was more comfortable with who I was and knowing that what people thought of me wasn't the most important thing. I just needed to put my head down, try hard, and do what I think Christ was calling me to do. And if that's loving someone that may be getting picked fun of, or just having a small conversation with a kid that like sits by themselves at lunch for whatever reason, like just being friendly to people in general. And that just kind of shifted from being angry all the time at everyone to like just trying to be a friendly person and loving.
Well, I think it's a great story, because I personally, I don't think I could have made it in high school as a Christian. I think I was way too concerned with I was way too concerned with where I was and what people thought of me. But I've heard some of your story, and I remember some of it from the Cross Timber like testimonial nights.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing it again just reminds me of the different gifts and the different stories, because not everyone's story is the same, and not everyone's story accomplishes the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think yours is a story of mercy and love. I think maybe if my kids may not get that because they don't see you as a full person, they only get this interview, they don't get to know you as much as I do. But from your story and from what I know, I can see the mercy and the love that you have and you show to other people. And that despite sometimes the world wasn't good to you, that you still are still there and still willing to love and be loved. And I think that's an amazing story, an amazing thing that God has gifted you with.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. You're gonna make me cry.
And so before we break down Jake and he starts crying, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. And so hopefully we can see you guys again sometime soon. I don't know, maybe, but we'll see. And so you guys have a good day. We'll see you sometime soon.
I mean, see ya.